So I thought that instead of just doing PowerPoint and some worksheets, because this is the start of a new unit, I thought I'd try out a new technique, which is me talking over the PowerPoint as I would as if I was stood in class in front of you. So I could do with some feedback. So when we've finished, if you want to tell me anything about what it sounds like, please email me. So this unit is now the brain and neuropsychology unit. All right, and this is session 1. And what we want to do in this session is give you a basic overview of the nervous system. Okay. So what we need to know, we need to learn the names of the different areas of the nervous system. You need to be able to describe the different parts of the nervous system. And then you need to be able to use the correct psychological language when you write about the nervous system. There will be, for each of these sessions, a set of key vocabulary. So, now you've got all the words, let's work out basically what the nervous system does. Well, it just collects the information from your senses, from everything that's going on in your environment, passes it up to the brain. Your brain processes it and responds, sending out messages so it can control different organs and cells in your body, including the brain itself. So a practical way of looking at that is the temperature goes down. Your skin senses that there's been a temperature drop, and the nervous system that ends up in your skin sends a message up to the brain. The brain processes that sensory information and then sends a message back out from your brain to your skin to make the hair on your arm stand up, so it traps a layer of air, so it keeps the heart rate in. Of course, some of the things that your nervous system does, we actually think about and make our muscles do it. So for example, if we want to stretch, we actually voluntarily make a decision to stretch. If we want to move forward, then we actually make that decision consciously to get our muscles to work to move forward. However, there's an awful lot that our body does that we don't actually control. So for example, blinking. We can stop ourselves blinking by closing our eyes or by holding our eyes open. But actually, we never think about blinking. The same with our heart beating. We don't actually have to think, must keep my heart beating, which is probably just as well, really. Nevertheless, the way our heart beats, how fast our heart beats, is all controlled by the nervous system. So we need to have a little bit of a closer look on how the nervous system works. This diagram very, very simply shows the way the nervous system is broken up. So, first division, central nervous system, which we're going to call CNS, and peripheral nervous system, which we're going to call PNS. We're going to have a closer look at the central nervous system first, but we'll keep coming back to this diagram. So, the central nervous system is basically made up of the brain and the spinal cord. We've got the brain up here, nice blue squiggle, up there in your skull, and the spinal cord that runs right the way down the centre of your spine. We've then got the peripheral nervous system, peripheral meaning around. So around the edges of the central nervous system, around your body. All right, this is the part of the nervous system that receives messages from your senses and sends instructions from the brain. All right, central, the middle bit, peripheral, all the rest. So let's think about your brain. All right, it's pink and squidgy. It's held together by a thin membrane and pretty much protected by the thick bone in your skull. Relative to the size of your body, it is the largest brain of all vertebrates. It weighs about 3.3 pounds, that's about 1.5 kilogram. And it's got about 86 billion neurons and billions of nerve fibres joining those neurons to other neurons and out to your senses. It's quite a remarkable organ. If we cut the brain in half, okay, the image there showing you which is the front where the eyes are and which is the back. The brain stem, just highlighted in red, is the part that connects the brain down to the spinal cord. The folded, squidgy, walnut-looking mass on top is where most of the complicated thoughts that really only humans have are processed, and the part in the middle is where all of your more basic responses come from. The brain's actually divided into two halves. It's not really purple and orange, that's just there to show you. The two parts are called hemispheres. All right, a sphere, a ball-like shape, hemisphere, half a ball-like shape. And they're actually joined deep inside the brain at an area called the corpus callosum. But the majority of the top of the brain is separate. Now, the brain has something called contralateral control. That means the right side of your body is controlled pretty much by the left side of the brain, and the left side of your body pretty much by the right side of the brain. From a biological perspective, from an evolutionary perspective, that would be so that if you were damaged on one side of your body, you wouldn't lose all functioning, because your brain is a really helpful organ, and when it becomes injured is very, very good at actually rewiring itself. It's called brain plasticity. At the moment you don't need to know about that, but we'll come into it in later sessions. However, you do need to understand about contralateral control. So when you wiggle your right hand fingers, the information to make those muscles move in your hand is coming from the left side of your brain. You can really delve into how complicated your brain is, what different parts of your brain do in terms of different skills that you have. If you have a look at this app, it's called the 3D Brain. There's a lot of the information that you won't need to pass your GCSE, but actually the brain's a fascinating organ, and the more that you know about it, the more fluently you'll be able to write about its function and its structure. So the 3D Brain is an app that you can download both for Apple and Android devices, and I'd really recommend that you take a look at it. You can manipulate the brain, you can turn it round, you can peel parts off so that you can see the inside structures, and anybody that's interested in either psychology or biology, it's really worth looking at. So the brain is connected to the spinal cord by the brain stem, okay? And the spinal cord is a mass of white and grey matter, that's neurons and nerve fibres, that runs down the centre of your spine. It's protected by the bones of your spine, by the vertebrae that run down the length of your spine. But between the vertebrae and the discs that keep the vertebrae separated, there are gaps that the nerves are able to come out of, and then they branch and spread right around your body, from the ends of your fingers through the center of your digestive system, down your legs to the ends of the toes, and back up into the brain. There are two types of neurons that we must know the name for. Afferent neurons carries sensory information from your five senses up through the spinal cord and into your brain to be processed. Signals from your brain then travel down the spinal cord and leave and are called efferent signals. So that's afferent going into the brain and efferent coming out of the brain. And where those different types of neurons enter and leave the spinal cord will depend where the information is coming from or where the signals are going to. So if they're going to your arms, then they'd come out at the top part of a spine. If they're going to the legs, they'd come out at the bottom part of the spine. And that'll explain why, if there is a spinal injury, the parts of the body that are affected depend on where the spinal injury is. Because if that pathway for the signals, for the neural information is broken, then your brain can no longer send messages to the part of the body below where that injury happens. So, having had a good look at the brain and central nervous system, now we need to have a look at the peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system is broken into the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system broken down into the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. It's really important that you're able to reproduce this diagram. So I'm going to break off here and give you the opportunity to pause the presentation and see whether you can reproduce that diagram, spelling all the words correctly and having all the join-ups in the right place. Okay, so let's go back to the peripheral nervous system. Peripheral means around, receives messages from the senses, sends instructions from the brain. Okay, there are two parts to it. The somatic system. Somatic means of the body. And these are the things that you are conscious of doing. They're your voluntary movements. So if you decide you want to get from one side of the room to the other, it's the somatic system as part of your peripheral nervous system that will make these things happen. If you decide you want to throw a ball or catch a ball, then it will be the somatic system that controls the information from your senses, moves it up to the brain so your eyes see where the ball is going. Your brain processes that information. You put your hand in the right place in a voluntary movement and you catch the ball. And again, we must emphasize that it's the efferent neurons that are bringing signals from the brain and the afferent neurons that are taking information from your senses up to the brain. So that's quite simple, really. That is all about the movements that you are consciously controlling. However, there is a lot in your body that you do not have any conscious control of. These things are controlled by the autonomic nervous system. All right, autonomic, very, very similar to the word automatic. These include things like shivering, whether or not you are doing digestion, your allergic reactions, all right, anything that happens in your body that happens without you needing to think about it. And there are two systems that work together: the sympathetic system and the parasympathetic system. The one is about arousal and the other is about storing energy when the body doesn't need to be aroused. So let's look at the sympathetic system first. It's all about arousal, getting you ready for action, fight or flight. It does things like releases hormones. It stops all your unnecessary bodily functions. It increases your heart rate to get more oxygen into your body. It increases the size of the bronchi in the lungs so that there is more oxygen zooming around your body. All this to get you ready for action. And the arousal can be a reaction to fear or stress or other threats, but it can also be excitement, intense joy, happiness. Now, the other system is your parasympathetic system. And this isn't just about not being aroused. This is actually there to allow your body to gather energy and store energy for when you might need to be aroused. It isn't just about calming down, it's got a purpose all of its own. Parasympathetic, para means alongside. If you think paramedic works alongside a medic, paranormal are things that happen that just alongside normal life. Okay, it's an ancient Greek word that means alongside. So they are not opposites of each other. They are two systems that work alongside each other. The parasympathetic system does things like slows the heart rate, constricts the bronchi in the lungs, stimulates the release of bile so your digestion kicks in. It's all the things that you do when you're calm in order to store up energy, hence digestion being important. So that's your brief overview of the nervous system. So what is it you need to do? The booklet for this area is in the Dropbox. In the first instance, you need to read pages 5 to 7 in order to get all of this information in a different form. As you go through that work, there are various questions. You need to be answering those as you go along to check you are understanding all the information about the nervous system. Then there is also a copy of the nervous system worksheet. Download it or simply copy it onto a piece of paper. What you have to do is write as much as you can in each box for all the different sections of the nervous system. Do it from memory, and when you've done it, check back with the information, and green pen or any colour pen really, anything you've left out. You really do need to practice that until you can reproduce the complete diagram with all the information. And then download and check out that 3D Brain app, because there are some really interesting, fascinating facts about the brain that you'll be able to pick up from that, and you'll also have some of the basic information you need from when we begin to look at the specific function of different areas of the brain. Okay, hope you enjoy the psychology lesson. Don't forget, give me some feedback on what you thought of the spoken narration that goes with the PowerPoint. Enjoy. Bye bye.